I could start please with a roll call.
President Ferrucci? Here. Trustee Holguin? Trustee Monette? Here. Trustee Morgan? Here. Trustee Wing? Thank you.
Okay, and then we have some closed session items to report out. I would like a motion request, please, for our expulsion. Second?
I'll second that.
Roll call?
President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Monette? Trustee Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we also need to report on some resolutions from our closed session. Dr. Gill, will you please go through each of those?
Sure.
We'll start with resolution 17-18-12.
Good evening. During a closed session held earlier tonight, the board listened to the resolution 17-18-12 pursuant to Education Code Section 44929.21, and board will vote on that. Now it is regarding a non-re-election of probationary employees, certificated probationary employees.
I need a motion, please.
Second.
President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now for resolution 17-18-13, Dr. Gill.
Okay, again, during closed session for resolution 17-18-13, pursuant to Education Code sections 44918B, 44954A, and section 44954B. The board heard the details and have reviewed them, and is ready for the voting right now.
Do we have a motion?
Thank you. And a second, please.
A second. Thank you.
And specifically, just to add, that resolution was for the release of temporary teachers.
President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now for resolution number 17-18-14, Dr. Gill.
Okay, resolution 17-18-14 is pursuant to Education Code 44951 regarding the reassignment of a certificate management position for the board to approve.
Do I have a motion? Thank you.
President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now if everybody would please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. So we have some very exciting things to happen on our agenda tonight for Benicia Unified, and I am going to ask Dr. Young to please key it up for us.
Can we have an approval of the agenda?
Oh, we need the agenda approved. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for March 1st, please, for this evening? Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. What a great turnout. So this is something that we've been looking forward to for several weeks at the district office, being able to recognize certificated and classified employees. So we're very excited about this. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gill, our new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, who's been organizing this event. So Dr. Gill.
Good evening, distinguished governing board, Madam President, Superintendent Young, all the honorees, their families and friends, and Benicia community. I'm Khushwinder Gill, serving as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. On behalf of Benicia Unified School District Governing Board and Superintendent Dr. Young, I welcome everyone who has joined us to honor our teachers, classified employees, and Administrator of the Year. BUSD is very proud of our dedicated and passionate team members who place students first and work diligently to meet their needs. We value all of our employees, and tonight we want to take a moment to honor employees who have been nominated by their schools and department teams. To do the honors, I will call up each of the principals who will introduce the awardees from their school site, or I will call the directors from their department, and the director will introduce the employee. They will also share a few highlights about the employee. With that, I request our governing board and Dr. Young, please, if you could step forward right here. Yes, please. Okay, awardees, this is how we're going to do this. We have actually 16 awardees, which is awesome, really, really wonderful. So when you come up, start with Dr. Young, shake hands, and then take your certificate from Ms. Frucci. Please stand and smile for a picture. And stay until the end, because we want to take a group picture at the end as well. Okay? And on the way out, please grab a cupcake as well, so just to add something sweetness to everything. So I am going to ask Mr. Slater from Turner School to come up first, Mr. Slater, and honor your staff. So he's going to introduce the teacher first, and then the classified staff member.
I want to congratulate Carolyn Oliver, our Teacher of the Year from Matthew Turner. Now, I know this is a big honor, especially after she didn't have a birthday this year. She was born on a leap year. So this would be her birthday tonight. And she was telling me a story about when she was a young girl, and her mother would say, okay, you pick a day in February and it'll be your birthday. So I'm sure she's extremely proud of you tonight. A few words about Carolyn. Wow, driven, so much integrity for the profession. She's been teaching for nearly 30 years, and she still has that creative spark. She is integral in her staff as far as not only helping mobilizing our curriculum, but also with our musical. She writes and choreographs that for us every single year. And to step inside her classroom, I tell you, I can go in there any time of the day, and those kids are deep into learning. She doesn't complain. She brings her A game every day, and those children in your classroom are so lucky. And just thank you for giving your all every single day. You're an amazing educator and a remarkable person. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and for our classified employee of the year, Laura Anastasios. Wow, she's the first person I typically see every day, and she has a smile on her face, and she's ready to go. And you talk about somebody with a sense of pride and will go far and beyond every day for our school and for our teachers and our students. One other really great quality about her is she will step up big time whenever there is something that needs to be done, or there's a mini crisis or something that we've got to work on. She's always right there. Congratulations, and you're just an awesome custodian. I couldn't ask for a better one at our school.
Thank you, Mrs. Slater, and let's give a big round of applause to Turner family. How about Miss Moore from Robert Semple School?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Gill for continuing the tradition of celebrating Teacher of the Year and Classified of the Year. Our staff looks forward to this each year and thoroughly enjoys the opportunity to recognize and celebrate their colleagues for their dedication and commitment to students. So my first is Debbie Ewing. She's our Teacher of the Year. It is with great pleasure that I'm able to introduce you to her. I've worked with Debbie since she came to Robert Semple in 2000. I've seen her develop not only strong relationships with her colleagues, but has built lifelong friendships too. One former colleague writes, "She makes me proud to be a teacher and a friend. That commitment to her friends and her colleagues is equally matched with the bonds she forms with her students." One of Debbie's colleagues pretty much sums it up when she says, "Debbie's love for children is joined with a purpose to reach every student regardless of their abilities." This couldn't be more true. Debbie works tirelessly with her team to make sure each and every one of her students feels cared for and receives the very best education she can offer. I can't think of a more deserving person this year than Debbie Ewing. I'm equally honored to introduce you to Hazra Ruiz, our Classified of the Year. I've known Hazra truly for most of my career. Our journey began when I had the privilege of working with her three amazing children, Adam, Alia, and Sarah. Hazra was an involved parent and quickly became an integral part of our school climate. She had her hand in just about everything from prepping classroom materials to attending field trips to helping with special events. Our path recently changed when Hazra came to Semple as a special purpose aide to one of the most amazing students we have. Her students' needs are great and require someone with patience, compassion, and a deep understanding for what achievement looks like for someone whose strides aren't obvious. She has become an integral part of her students' family, and they are forever grateful for the support she has given their son. The mother of Hazra's student writes, "My son's successful participation in a general education classroom and his progress towards meeting his IEP goals has much to do with Ms. Ruiz's dedication and genuine interest in her position. I cannot begin to express the gratitude I have for all of her efforts and contributions. She is a stellar employee and a wonderful person, and I am deeply grateful that she is part of our lives." And I couldn't agree more that no one deserves this recognition more than Hazra.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. That was great. How about Henderson School, Ms. Buck?
Thank you very much. So we are honoring two wonderful employees today, and this was very special because I had no input whatsoever. All of the staff members voted on the classified and certificated employees of the year. So that was really special. So the first person I would like to honor is Miss Amy Parker Borges. She is our wonderful kindergarten teacher. She's been teaching kindergarten for 12 years. 3 decades about, and she is top-notch. She has such compassion and a nurturing ability with our little ones. I walk in, I smile, I say hi, and I get to walk out because Amy's in charge. So being a kindergarten teacher is one that takes a very, very special person. Not everybody can be a kindergarten teacher. Amy is hardworking. She comes in with the custodian, and she leaves with the custodian. So oftentimes 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, it's like, okay, Amy, time to go. She plans very well. She is, she knows her students without having any paper in front of her. She can, spout out what they do and what they can't do and what their needs are. Because this is her last year, I'm not gonna cry. Because this is her last year, she and I have shared a lot of tears and stories, and so everyone is kind of a special moment. So I just wanted to thank you, Amy, for being such an integral part of our staff, for taking our 2 kindergarten teachers under your wing to help them learn all the ropes of being a Henderson Hound, and thank you for your dedication. So, Amy. And our next person is our classified employee of the year. Not only is he the employee of the year, but he's rookie of the year because he's been with us a whopping 8 months. And yet over 50% of the staff voted for this person to be a classified employee of the year. That speaks to his capabilities. So Mr. Martin Corona came about... He came about the same. Oh, yes, please, come on up, Martin. Give me a good target. Mr. Martin has been with us a short time, but he exemplifies professionalism and dedication. When you ask Martin to do anything, he automatically comes at the drop of a hat. He checks in with us throughout the day. I see a lot of head nods from my Henderson staff. When I first got there, the chair that was there prior was kind of askew, and I couldn't work that way. I thought this is kind of silly, so I bought a new chair, and I said, Martin, I know it's not your job, but maybe within the next week or 2, if you could put it together. That thing was done in like 15 minutes. I mean, this man is a dream. I also am encouraging him to have a husband training clinic because Julie, the woman behind the man, is, she eggs him on too. So Martin is the best custodian with whom I've worked, and I've worked with about 8, I think, in my days. So Martin, thank you so much for being a wonderful part of our staff, and we love you to death. And thank you, Hounds, for showing up.
So proud of you. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you. And now we'll go to Farmer School with Miss West.
Good evening. I'm Jane West. I am the interim principal at Mary Farmer School. Because I'm interim, I am a retired principal from the Benicia Unified School District, and I've had the pleasure to work with both of our employees of the year back in the days when I was principal over at Mills. Melissa Harley was a passionate parent volunteer that started at Mills, and she was just a dynamite when I met her, and was befriended by the Mills staff who encouraged her to go into education. She got her credential the year I was there. She was hired by Susan Sullivan over at Mary Farmer and has become this stellar teacher that is so amazing and so wonderful to work with. She currently teaches 5th grade at Farmer, where she embodies her dedication to the field. She's an amazing teacher whose priority is always the students. Her passion is giving voice to the student, and her passion is also building community, and everything she does is about that. She also collaborates freely with her colleagues, and she has developed workshops with colleagues to help parents support their kids in school. She is an amazing person. She's, I think, an example of the heart of Mary Farmer School. She's been on the site council, safety committee, curriculum committees. You go on and on and on. I can't tell you how pleased I am to present Melissa Harley as our Teacher of the Year.
Since Melissa's here, I want to add 2 sentences. One is, I really got to know Melissa through Leadership Academy because she's a very, very engaged candidate and very active candidate in our Leadership Academy. Secondly, are you guys ready for this? Drum roll, please. Melissa Harley is the Benicia Unified School District Teacher of the Year, representing She will be representing our district in Solano County and hopefully at the state level. All prayers with you.
We are so proud of Melissa. Our other employee, our classified employee of the year, I also knew is an active parent volunteer over at Mills. She was passionate and ended up getting a job in food service. And so Heather Cullum has worked at Mills, at Robert Semple for a while, at the middle school for a while, and the last 7 years, I believe it has been at Mary Farmer. She is efficient unbelievably in the school nutrition program. She ensures that all of our students have a healthy lunch and breakfast to fuel her physical and academic growth. But she also presents a warm, friendly start to the school day. When students come for breakfast and then they continue through the day at lunch, we have more than 400 kids that pour into our cafeteria, and they all are purchasing lunch, or many of them purchasing lunches from our beloved Miss Heather. She has a grace about her, and we love having her, and thank you so much. Heather Cullum.
So I got a really, really nice request from the director of food service. She said, I have to say something about Heather. Can we allow her? Yes? Just joking, just joking.
I just want to say, Heather, we are very proud to have you on our team. 13 years working for BUSD. She is one of the greatest employees. She cares about her kids, and she's there every day. Thank you so much. Wish we can clone you and have more of you there. Congratulations.
So we also need drum roll for Heather. I'm really on it, right? Because Heather is also going to be the Benicia Unified School District Classified Employee of the Year, representing at Solano County. Wow, that was Farmer. Farmer got both Employee of the Year for the district, huh? Let's go to Benicia Middle School. Where is Mr. Scott? Right there, hiding behind the door.
I was hiding in the hallway, so thank you for letting us honor, our wonderful employees. It's nice to be recognized and share that with the people that deserve it. I'd first like to introduce our Certificated Teacher of the Year, Anne Marie Van Amsen. She's our 6th grade English teacher, and the first day I met her, I just remember how genuine, nice, honest she is. She has this warm smile that's really contagious, and you see it in her classroom. And that's one of the most honest things I could say about her. And I was thinking more about her and how to kind of share and convey all that she does, because she does so many amazing things, not only in the classroom for her students, but across campus for her own self. So I kind of thought of, the old David Letterman late night top 10, not a top 10, but it kind of did you know? And this is all did you know in the last year. She's done all these things in the last year. So did you know she's a mentor teacher to an amazing beginning teacher that I think a lot of that, of his growth has to do with her, kind of made him a junior rock star in her own right. She participated in project-based learning this summer through the Buck Institute during the summer. She's been trained by Teachers College in Reading and Writing Workshop. I also learned tonight at dinner that she's doing on her own, was it 14 days? So 14 days of the Bay Area Writing Project this summer on her own. She's also sought out to be a trainer through Reading and Writing Workshop in the Teachers College. She's had other school districts come and observe her classroom and her implementation of her curriculum. She serves on several committees, Best Practices Committee, our Modernization Committee. She's piloting flexible furniture. You see technology being used appropriately and to enhance student learning. And again, the thing that I always go back to is when I see her students in her classroom, they're 100% engaged, they're smiling, and they seem to generally enjoy themselves. So, she's a true rock star, and I feel lucky to be able to work with her. So congratulations, Anne Marie. And I'm also honored to present our Classified Employee of the Year for Benicia Middle School, and that's our office manager, Siobhan Mara. I think one of the most indicative things of her and her personality and her work is when you walk into our office, it's just a very welcoming, inviting place. And, that's really a sign of everyone, but including the office manager. So she took over this job about 2 years ago. And, if you say professionalism, I think that's indicative of her. I don't know how she really does it because, office manager has, teachers coming in. She has to coordinate subs. She has parents calling. She has colleagues calling, and then has, the principal always hounding her for a million questions because he doesn't know what he's doing without her. She never seems stressed out. I mean, she's just calm. She does it well. And I'm just amazed at that because I don't know if any of us can do it as well and as calm and with a smile. I remember in college, we probably all remember this, we had that advice when you go into the dorms, find the person with the car, right, and make friends with them right away. It's kind of a true analogy of the workplace and education, right? Find the office manager, make friends with them, because your life is going to be a lot better. They take care of all of us, right? They do everything for us. So, that's one of the things I would say. And, a side note, personally, I'm just very thankful for her. Because as a principal, I really can't do anything without her. So she's an amazing employee and deserving of this award. So congratulations, Siobhan.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Now we can go to home of the Panthers, Benicia High School. Ms. Klein-Smith, please.
Good evening. very honored to present two people who are extremely important to all the work happening at Benicia High School. First, our Teacher of the Year, Annette Fewens. My first encounter with Annette was actually that she helped mentor me as a new teacher at Benicia High School, and our relationship has grown and shifted over the past 7 years. And I have to tell you, I have a lot of meetings, but whenever I have a meeting with Annette, it's one of the best things about my day. She is beyond dedicated, driven, motivated. The work that she has accomplished, and really just with so much humility and sort of just quietly working day after day, it's incredible. And it's so much fun to do it with her and sort of be along for the ride. Our CTE programs have just exploded over the last few years. She's helped us to bring in such great talent. A lot of her colleagues are here tonight to help honor her. And I think that just shows the work that she does. She reaches out, she supports everyone around her. And it's just incredible to see it happen. We announced that we were honoring Annette as our Teacher of the Year, and soon after she let me know that she's also retiring this year. And so I'm still working to get her to change her mind in some capacity, because I know that she just loves what she's doing and loves seeing what's happening at Benicia High School. Just today we had our Skills USA Awards at lunch, and something that she's helped to work on and grow this program this year. And to watch her announce all of the students that were being awarded and all of the work that they were doing, I think it really goes to that she should be receiving that award. And so I'm glad tonight is in part recognition to her and all the work that she's doing. So I want to recognize Annette Fewens, an incredible Teacher of the Year.
And I just want to let you know I didn't do this by myself. Brianna has been a great inspiration for me, and I would do anything for her. And my CTE staff, Sonia and Steve and Andreas, are amazing, and all the people that I've worked with. Thank you.
Our Classified Employee of the Year is someone that is very hard to describe. She is amazing. She does everything for everyone. And she probably has the most wicked, witty sense of humor that I've ever encountered. And she makes me laugh when I really, really need it. And that is our office manager, Kim Feigelstock. We get to have a lot of fun together while we're doing some pretty tough work. And she really is everything to everyone. She loves our students and she takes such good care of them. It's incredible the time that she'll take beyond her regular day to sit with a student who is having a tough day, who is in need of something. Maybe they need a ride home or they need a phone call. She is amazing at organizing and coordinating our substitute teachers with a staff of over 80 teachers, plus all of our support staff. You can imagine substitutes sometimes can be a juggling act, and she does it flawlessly. And the phone is constantly ringing. She's helping everyone all the time. And I just can't imagine anyone doing it with more grace. And we get to have fun. And she lets me vent sometimes. But I echo what Mr. Scott said earlier. I couldn't do what I have done without you, and just completely enjoy working with you. So thank you for being part of our team.
Thank you. Let's give them a big round of applause. I heard somebody clapping. Yes, thank you. So our next school is Liberty High School. Mr. Pless could not be here. He sent his apologies. He also sent me the write-ups that he wanted me to say on his behalf. So I'm first one is Danny Ruiz, who is their Classified Employee of the Year. Danny, could you please come forward? Danny here? No? Okay. So I'll share with you what he said about Danny. Danny is kind and sportive. He's always willing to lend a hand or take care of any extra issues that may arise. He gets along well with all staff and students. Danny takes pride in his work and on campus and our campus. Our site sparkles in the morning light due to his tireless work. I am honored to have Danny Ruiz as our Classified Employee of the Year, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to show my true appreciation for his wonderful work. Liberty School's Teacher of the Year is Chris Winder. Now, the funny thing about Chris Winder's name is this. I have to share this story, even though it's off topic for a second. When I met him first time, he shook my hand and he said, "I'm Chris Winder." And I thought he said my name, because my name is Kushwinder. And I looked at him for a second, and then I saw his something on the wall that says Chris, and then his last name, and then I shared it with him afterwards. I said, "This is what I thought." Great guy. I really since then that's like my connection with him. So this is what he could not be here. He really wanted to be here. He emailed me. He said, "I have not a conflict. I couldn't be here, but I just want to share with you." As an educator, Mr. Winder is a dynamo. Chris's energy in class is always high, and he is always pushing his students to do their best. His lessons are creative and thought-provoking. Like the time he had students in his math class, deductive reasoning and back on the Oreo box to figure out which calories came from a wafer and which calorie came from a cream. His class is always hands-on and always doing critical thinking classes. And his class, another part that's what Mr. Pless said, other class what Chris Winder's class is that his kids and he are always laughing. So we can always seeing him them fun and kids love him. So let's give both of the employees from Liberty good round of applause. So we also, along with the school sites, we also select a classified employee from this district office, and we also have a administrator of the year from the district office. So I'm going to ask Mr. Director, Mr. Mayor, to come forward and recognize our classified employee of the district, please.
Good evening. I'm here for John Da Silva. Everybody know John? The irony of the moment is not lost. On that note, John is a true always guys. And it's been great. One of the things I appreciate recently, any situation, it's not by my side. Yeah. A couple more things. Something that John doesn't know that that sealed the deal. Give me $1 million. But anyway, John is great.
I said, I'm not going to see Dr. Young for next 2 days. I told him 25 minutes or 20 minutes. I just tell Steven I said, short it down because he was like going on and on. No, Brianna, she's always long. She always long. But it was pretty good. Yeah. But everyone, 60 people. They're like, people loving it. They said, oh my God, it's so positive. I know, it was good. It was good. Okay, we should get back to order.
Okay, but I'm going to go to the bathroom, so stop.
Yeah, I wish I.
All right, we'd like to reconvene our meeting. Dr. Gill, have you gotten rid of your cupcakes? Okay, then we can move forward. Okay. I'd like, now that we've had an opportunity to recognize some amazing people, that was such a fabulous way to start our meeting. I kind of think we should like stop it here because it was a great way to spend the meeting. Should we go out for that? Can I get a motion? Okay, we'd actually like to do, because our students have been sitting here too. Hopefully you got a cupcake while you were sitting there. Okay, this is good. So we'd like to give them the opportunity to give their student reports. So.
Hi, I'm Janessa. I'm from Liberty High School. So 12 students entered their artwork into the Next Generation Art exhibit, which she has flyers for. One of our own students, Jeremiel, actually is the head cover part of it, the little doll on it, right? It's perfect. I actually really like it. And also the students started planting new plants in the garden for the spring. Yearbooks are on sale for $40 and is coming along nicely, and I actually really enjoy doing it this year.
And one of the students at BHS came to Liberty to take a video about just kind of trying to stop the misconceptions, I want to say. Like, just trying to get a better feel of Liberty, I want to say. I don't really know how to explain it. And then big shout out to Mr. Winder and Danny for getting their rewards. And next Monday, there's going to be a trip to Touro University to learn in the medical fields. Yeah.
Well done.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a great job. And congratulations on all the art competitions. Thank you. Okay, now our superintendent's.
Thank you. Just a couple of items for us. At the last board meeting, we had a conversation about our safety plans, and we approved them. And one of the thoughts that was shared by the trustees was doing some follow-up around an examination or evaluation, kind of a safety analysis out at the school sites. And so since then, we've been able to secure the services of an organization that will be doing this safety analysis at each of our schools that will help us with the overall safety at the school site. So we're excited about doing that as we move forward, because we always want to keep our schools as safe as possible. I'd also like to thank, moving on, Mr. Kaiser, an amazing teacher over at the high school. He teaches a number of classes in the CTE department. So this past weekend, 16 students at the high school competed, the robotics team competed in the RoboWave robotics in Silicon Valley competition, and they did really, really well. And I tweeted out a picture on it earlier today. And they got first place and the first place, second place, third place, and another second and third, covering a variety of categories. So our students did a really great job at that competition. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Kaiser for taking the kids to that, preparing them for that event. I'd also like to recognize the high school because they were named the Civic Learning Merit Award winner. And the award is designed both to celebrate successful efforts to engage students in civic learning and to identify successful models that can be replicated in other schools. So that was a nice recognition that came to them. So we'd like to applaud their efforts in that category. So that's it from your superintendent.
Thank you. And our board?
I'll just second the appreciation for Mr. Kaiser. My son was in that group, and it was all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And Mr. Kaiser gave up his time and also got these kids together with his own resources and efforts. And my son came back so engaged, so excited, and it was really, really wonderful for him to give of himself that way. It really makes a big impact.
Well, and I thought it was such a great write-up that he did as well, and the pictures as well. So we got to see PJ in the pictures too. So just so, and also our wrestling team. So unplanned, but I got to ship them out today when they were leaving for their wrestling competition. Unbeknownst to me, I'm sitting in Starbucks with my husband, which is what I do most mornings, and I see all these high school kids coming, and I'm like, what time is it? And I'm looking, and then I see some coaches coming, and I'm like, Mr. Holden sent us an email that was saying that our kids are getting wrestling to go for the state competitions down in Bakersfield. So they were all gathering together, getting a little extra fuel for the ride, and getting ready to embark on their journey. So that was kind of fun. I went outside and wished them all congratulations and talked to the coaches for a couple of minutes, and then they all took off. So hopefully they had a safe drive, because the rain this morning was pretty horrific when we were sitting there watching. So anyways, I am sure our students are all there safely, but that was part. So I didn't do a lot of gallivanting this week, but what I do have are some CSBA reports to share with us. First of all, I got a thank you note from CSBA to share with everyone because we participated and completed the resolution for full and fair funding. So they wanted to thank us for being a participant. There are, in fact, 1,200 districts in the state of California, and they are approaching 1,000 that have so far participated. So I think that speaks volumes for the need and the question of wanting to look at the funding rate and what they're doing. We will be having a Ledge Action Day again on March 13th, and I know some of us are going to be participating, but I encourage any and all of you, get on the email and contact your legislature and let them know how important this is. We are looking at the base funding in the LCFF, and what we're asking them to do is to raise the base at least to the state average. The goal is eventually by 2025 that it represents the average of the nation. But for right now, we're looking at raising the rate to be the average of just California. So that means they're adding about $1,960 is what they're talking per student in order to raise the rate. And the rationale for that is California being the 6th largest economy in the world, and yet we fall 41st when it comes to how we fund schools for students, and 45th for staffing, and 47th for overall staffing in districts based on the monies that we can afford. So it's really something that I think is important, and it's picking up momentum, and we will be there on the 13th. Also, we have a training and a strategy session on March 5th, which is next Monday, I believe. And we have all been invited. So, and I've also been asked to find out how many of us, if any of us, can participate on the March 5th meeting. So if you can either let me know this evening or tomorrow in an email, that would be great. They are looking to really make sure that everyone is real clear and has the information going forward so that we can become active participants and become productive in the conversation. So again, I encourage you also to reach out and make your voice heard. This is an opportunity where our legislatures are asking, what are we thinking? And my computer just died. Nope, there it is. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. It's up. It's up. My screen had just gone dark. Otherwise, they want me to do it from memory, huh? Okay, I know the next part though. Okay, it's comments from our members of the public. So, members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards which may be completed requesting to address the board are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and not agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. And with that, I have one speaker, Mike Iacomides. There he is.
Hello, my name's Mike Iacomides. I'm resident here of Benicia. I'm actually here as a representative of the Solano County Fair Association, but this was kind of an inspiring evening. I'm glad I came, and I wanted to share something with you. All my kids are graduates of the Benicia school system. My youngest, my son, is working on his teaching credential at St. Mary's, and the reason he is one day he just decided, he said, you know, I had a great middle school teacher, and I think that's what I'd like to do. So the work you do here definitely ripples out through all our lives, so thank you for that. I'm here because I just want to, we're having our 15th annual Ag Day coming up on March 20th, and that's where we have about 3,000 third graders come out, and they learn a bunch of different things about ag and the ag community and how things happen. And we deal directly with the third grade teachers and have been for a while. And when I came on board, I went, are you talking to the district offices and letting them know? Because sometimes word doesn't get out. And so that's why I'm here, just to kind of, I'll pass out copies of our PowerPoint presentation. And I know you've got other things to look at, and I know you can't comment on any of this. So there's that. My card is there. If you'd like to attend on the 20th, please let me know. We would love to have you come out. It's a wonderful day. My favorite event is watching the sheepdogs herd the sheep. That's pretty cool. And we're also working on trying to reintegrate the fair and the Fair Association back into the community. This weekend we're hosting a robotics championship. So you might want to come out and check that out. We've got some exciting news coming. I can't tell you yet, but it's part of kind of the education community that's going to be folded into one of our biggest activities, and you'll be hearing that in the next couple weeks. So if we can ever be a resource for you, you've got my card, and thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other speakers, Mrs. Jensen? Thank you. So then we'll move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be pulled and discussed. So do I have a motion, please?
So we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. We have no gifts at this time. So we are going to move on to discussion items. And that is going to be a discussion on Benicia High School special education programs.
So we have two presentations tonight that will be delivered to us by Dr. Patton. So she's our main presenter this evening. And the first one does focus on our special ed program and the special ed plan that Dr. Patton and her team have crafted. And then the second report that you'll be doing is on our PBIS program. So welcome, Dr. Patton.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you to the audience for staying. So it was a great time of celebration. So a good night. So yeah. So the first presentation tonight is on special education.
I don't have my agenda. Is it this one?
Yep, it's this one. Okay. Yep. So just go to awesome. All right. So it's going to be kind of a two-part presentation. The first is going to be on what's called our Special Education Performance Indicator Review, and then we'll do a quick synopsis and summary and update on the special education curriculum support model that we've started at the high school this year. So we've got some preliminary data from our first semester. So let's see if I can get this one going the right way. So, so the objectives for tonight is just to broaden both the board's and the community's understanding of what a performance indicator review is. It's one of 5 ways that the state of California monitors special education and our performance within special education. I'll highlight some of the key components. I will not go into every single data or detail, or we would be here way too long. And how that performance indicator plan is developed. And then, again, we'll review some of the data from Benicia High School. And you'll see how that fits into the performance indicator plan and why those kind of go hand in hand tonight as I move through this. For the board, if at any point you guys, I think, know, I'm totally comfortable with you interrupting and asking questions as I move along. I'm going to move through some of this data pretty quickly, but if you want some details on it, just let me know. So what is a performance indicator review? It's basically the state looks at now not only compliance, things like IEPs being done on time, but also how our students with disabilities are performing academically, how discipline is happening with those students compared to the state and also compared to their peers within that same district. There are targets. Some of the targets you'll see are 100% all the time. You have no a place for error. And then there's other targets that are moving targets based on statewide averages. Then there's a third way that the targets are continuously increasing. Think of your old AYP where it didn't matter if you made the bar or didn't make the bar continued to rise each year. So unlike LCAP where you have your status and then your change and you get credit for making improvement, with most of the PIR, you either make it or you don't make it, and you don't get that benefit of, well, we've at least made progress with this. So, so what happens with the PIRs? It's been happening now from, we started getting reports back in the 14-15 school year. And the reports, unfortunately, like we just got the 16-17 data last week. And so a lot of the reports are lag reports, and they're even later than our LCAP data. And so what they do is they look at if you have 2 years in a row on the same indicator, then the state requires you to do a corrective action plan and a root cause analysis. So with Benicia Unified, as I go through this, I will point out the areas that Benicia Unified had to do a PIR corrective action plan because we had data points that we did not meet the state target for 2 years in a row in the same area. And so you'll see that in our PRA plan, which has been submitted to the state, we looked at the reasons for that, and that was part of what prompted us to change the model of special ed at the high school. So then we continue to look at the new data. So for example, I've looked at the data that we got for 16-17, and we can anticipate what corrective action plans we'll need to do in the future based on what 15-16 data and 16-17 data looks at. And then we have to have the plan. SELPA, our Special Education Local Planning Area, helps us develop that plan. and then it has to be submitted to the California Department of Education for final approval. And so that plan was submitted to the department, and I have copies of the plan here for the public to review. It has not yet been approved by the California Department of Education yet, and that is not because it's been declined. It's simply because the person that was responsible for approving these plans has moved on to another job, and that position is vacant right now. So we are waiting for the CDE to fill that position and review the plans. In the meantime, that hasn't stopped us. We're continuing to implement our plan. Okay, so this is our 3-year data trend. So this is the first indicator, and it's our 4-year graduation rates. And we have continued to meet our 4-year graduation rates. We more than exceed them. If you see 14-15, you'll see we had 100% graduation rate. This is the graduation rate for students with disabilities, and it's students that earn a regular high school diploma. That 14-15 data, it was a cleanup data, and so that's not something that we're really looking at as far as long term. So don't think that we dropped from 100% to 79. We had to clean up students out of our system along with all other districts to get those kids out of there. So really what you want to look at is, and the reason I put 14-15 there is because I want you to see how it went from 69.25 to 67 for the state target, and now we're up to 74. We expect that next year's target, eventually they want it to get to about an 80% graduation rate for all students with disabilities that would graduate with a regular high school diploma. Remember, students with disabilities can also get a certificate of completion. So we're looking at only about 10% of our students we would estimate would get a certificate of completion, and then the state would allow a 10% dropout rate for students with disabilities. That's the state's criteria. That is not Benicia's criteria. We are still always striving for 100% graduation rate for our kids that are on grad track. So right now our 16-17 data at approximately 83% is accurate data. Okay, so the next thing is our dropout rate. So a dropout rate is a little interesting because students can stay in services until age 22. So we count a student as dropping out if they discontinue their educational services and don't return. So some of our students will stay and continue at Liberty, or they'll continue on independent study, and they're still on grad track, so they don't actually drop out. They may transfer to adult school, and they will not, for students with disabilities, that will not count towards this dropout rate. So that's why you don't get that adding of, well, why does 5.9 plus 89, or 83% not add up to 100? But as you can see, we're well below. And again, we want to be lower. We want our dropout rates to be low. Okay, the next thing is our state assessments. So we're just like with LCAP, and this is what's really difficult for us to look at in 2 different ways, because we have our LCAP data that we look at with our targeted subgroups, and students with disabilities is one of our subgroups. And then we have our PIR data. So for purposes of PIR, we look at our participation rates and we look at our achievement rates. So our participation rates is one of the areas that we're really struggling in, and we continue to struggle, and our current year data shows that we're continuing to struggle. So we need to have 95% of our students with disabilities participate in the SBAC. And as you can see, our participation rates are running right around 90%, and they actually dropped for the 16-17 for our math down to 88%. So that's something in our PIR plan that we have to work with our teachers and our administrators and our parents to help them understand that there's a lot of functionality with the SBAC test so that students with disabilities can participate. They can participate by taking it in another room, but also the function of the test makes it so it's less stressful for kids with disabilities, because it does allow that student to have questions that are more at their level without having a different looking type of test like the old paper and pencil test. So we really want to encourage all of our students to take the SBAC test, and we want to make sure that they know that that's something they're going to have to take tests their whole lives. You know, they're going to have to take a test to get their driver's license. They're going to have to take, you know, a food handling test, different things depending on what careers they go into. So test taking strategies are something that we'll continue to work with, but we do need to improve the participation rates. The second piece of that is our performance rates, and we're looking at the percentage of students that achieve at level 3 or 4 on the ELA and on the math. And as you can see in 15-16, we did not meet the state target, but we've been able to increase that to where we had 16.4% of our students with disabilities were able to achieve at that level 3 or 4. So we were able to meet the targets for ELA. And also with math, we went up from 9 to 15% that met that, and so we have met the state target for that. That the achievement rate is in our PRR plan, but we've already actually corrected that. So whether the CDE approves the plan or not, it's been corrected. Okay, so the next indicator is, I didn't put the actual data up here because it's just a whole lot of data that you wouldn't be able to read, but this is available. It's on the SELPA website, and it'll be on our special ed website if you want to look at specific data. Right now, they're for the 16-17, because the numbers are so small, they have to redact the numbers for specific students because otherwise it's identifiable to a child. But the data that they look at is suspensions and or expulsions that were suspensions more than 10 days in one school year, or any expulsions. And these suspensions include in-house suspensions, and it's a total number per student. So any particular student that was suspended for 10 or more days and or expelled would count in this data. And they compare our total to the statewide average, and then they also disaggregate it by race, ethnicity. And for now 3 years in a row, we have come up with disproportionate data for our African American students, and this will be the first year for our multiracial students. So part of what we run into as a lot of districts is, and I put the numbers up here, is we had 2 African American students that met this category. So when we have really low numbers, it shoots us up over the statewide average. So it's not something that we need to continue to work on, because we know that suspensions are not generally a reliable way of changing behavior. But we also know that there are some times that students there are mandatory expulsions. And so if we have students that must be expelled by the board, and or the board looks at the behavior and expels them, then they're going to show up. And so if there's a corrective action plan on this that's required by the state, then we'll address it at that time. So far, because they've determined that it's a small number, they haven't asked for a corrective action plan from the state on this one yet. But with us being 3 years in a row, they may. So we'll find out when they review our data. Any questions on that? Okay. This last one, and this has to do with one of the reasons we changed the model at the middle school, is another one that they look at multiple factors, and it's called least restrictive environment, and it's the amount of time a student with a disability spends in the general ed setting. So there's 3 ways they look at it. The first way is C. I'm going to skip to C and go in reverse order, and that's our students that we completely remove from a public school setting. So they're either on homebound instruction, they're in a non-public school, they're in a residential placement. And so we run between 1.2, 2.1% of our students. Most of those are students that are on home hospital instruction, and it's for a legitimate hospital reason. So we've never even come close to the statewide average that we would be in danger of going above that. The second one, which is the amount of time that students spend in general ed that's basically less than 40% of their day. So this would be students that are primarily in an SDC setting. These would include our students that are served by the County Office of Ed, some of our students that are in our classes for students with emotional disturbances, where they're spending more than 50% of the day in the special ed setting. And as you can see, the state would expect us to have less than 25% of our students be in that category. And we've ranged somewhere around 10 to now we're at 7%. And that's due to our inclusion model and primarily that we tend to keep our kids in general ed as much as possible. The area that we struggled with was the opposite, which was the kids that spend 80% or more of their day in general ed. So while we have an inclusion model, what we found, particularly at the secondary level, was we were placing kids in a lot of resource classes. And so they weren't considered SDC, but they were spending sometimes 2, 3, 4 periods a day in a special ed setting. And so that was pushing our percentages up. And the state would expect that we would have less than 50% of our kids that would be spending more than 80% of their time in the special ed, or in the, excuse me, more than 20% of their time in a special ed setting, or less than 80%. So, so we have actually already fixed this, and we expect that our numbers are going to continue to go in the positive, in that as you see the data from the high school, our students are starting to adjust, and our teachers and staff are really learning some strategies to work with kids with disabilities, and we're finding that for the most part, and there are some students that are struggling, for the most part it's very successful for students and staff. And then this is just the last piece. We haven't had any problems with these, but there are 13 indicators. We look at preschool least restrictive environment, that we have access for our preschoolers in the general ed setting. We look at lots of factors around timely assessments, initials, 3 years, etc. Parent involvement in the IEP, disproportionality around eligibility, whether we're over-identifying kids of a particular race in any of the eligibility categories. And then finally, transition goals and services. And these are for our students that are 16 and over and preparing them for college and career. And there are a number of factors that the state looks at, and that's really become a very robust part of the IEP process, looking at our kids that are 16 and whether they're getting linked to appropriate adult services. As a district, we have always met our goals on this, not only just letter of the law, but we've done a good job with those transition and eligibility services. Okay, so in summary, so for the 14-15 and 15-16 school year, we didn't meet our targets for participation rates in both ELA and math. We didn't meet performance rates in ELA and math, and we didn't meet our targets for least restrictive environment TK through 12. So that caused us to do a root cause analysis in the plan that was submitted to CDE. Copies of that plan are available tonight, and then we will post them on our website as soon as it's approved by CDE. Again, the corrective actions have already proven to be effective for those achievement rates and for the least restrictive environment. Our new data shows that we are meeting our targets now, but we do need to continue to work on those participation rates. Okay. Any questions on the PIR plan before I move on to Benicia High School? Okay. So as we looked at this data, and we knew that a couple of things, not only the state wanting us to have kids in general ed, but also all of the research that shows that students do better when they're in a general ed setting with appropriate supports and services. We embarked last year on looking at our model of special ed delivery at the high school. And through a cooperative effort with general ed teachers, special ed teachers, and the administration at the high school, looking at models at other schools, we chose to go to what's called a curriculum support model. So just kind of just a reminder of that. Rather than students spending their time in a pull-out resource English class, they would be placed in a regular English class and a regular science class, a regular social studies class, and then they would have a curriculum support class. And that teacher would support the instruction that was happening in the general ed classroom. We also realigned our resource case managers by grade level so that they could get to know the curriculum and the general ed teachers and help to accommodate the curriculum and have better access to collaboration. So this has been our first year. We wanted to have some supports for our students. We knew that as we were moving to the next generation science standards, that this would be the last year of biology. So we kept our resource biology class in place. Those students, most of our students in that resource biology class do not intend to take another year of science. They've now finished their science requirements. And then we also did not want to jeopardize the graduation of our seniors. So we kept our English language arts and our econ government class for our seniors for this year only. And part of that we wanted to just, again, we knew that those students, most of them had not been in a regular ed English class all through high school. So we wanted to make sure that they still had that soft landing. We did a lot of work with the general ed teachers and the special ed teachers on trying to help figure out how they could communicate best. And one of the things that the teachers came and asked us early on was time to collaborate. So we did offer timesheets, extra duty hours for the general ed and the special ed staff to meet at their convenience after school or whenever they wanted to meet to be able to collaborate and work on curriculum together. And then part of the LCAP, Miss Dr. Beatson had days that there were subs provided to each of the departments, and the special ed department had those days, and also some of the special ed teachers joined with their colleagues, whether it be the science department or the history department, on some of their days. So during one of the days that the special ed staff had, they had a whole day. They were able to pull all of the grades. They were able to really look at the assignments, and they continued to monitor that throughout the semester of the students to see, are the students struggling because they're not doing the work at all? Are they struggling because they're not attending school? Or are they actually doing the work but not getting good grades, and so then their grades are lowered? And through that, they were able to really help fine-tune. We found that some of the gen ed teachers needed a little more guidance and just permission, if you will, to be able to accommodate some of the grades or to understand the regular accommodations in a student's IEP. And then some of it was just the general ed teachers understanding the curriculum. At the end of the semester, they did pull all of the grades, and we looked at that, and I'll show you some of that data. The other thing that's really been a learning process is how to use our classified staff, our special ed classified staff. So there's been some switching around and looking at their strengths. And prior to this model, each special ed teacher had a classified staff that was kind of assigned to them, and they stuck to their side, if you will, in their class. And now what they've done is just kind of spread them out and use the classified staff. For example, Miss Brinkerhoff, I think she was here, she might have left. She's just amazing in the auto shop class, and she's really learned it, and she understands how to support those kids in that class, and that's a really primary class for our students with disabilities. A lot of them like to take it. So we've been able to fine tune that, and I want to just thank Cheryl Lane. She's done a great job with that. So the case managers met, they looked at all of the grades, they looked at, again, the specific reasons that students were passing or not passing classes. And then they've continued to tweak and realign where they're providing push-in support. Students also have that curriculum support class, but they also then have access, for the most part, with their case manager, which allows them to monitor that time. So here's our kind of our first semester data. So again, I put in the number of first semester Fs. These are for students with IEPs only. And so as you can see, just kind of glancing down, we haven't had a significant increase in the number of Fs that students with disabilities have been assigned or earned in the first semester. It went from 68 to 62 to 72. The thing that's really different is when students with IEPs used to be failing a class, what would generally happen is if it was a general ed class, they would pull them out and put them in a resource class, and then that F would turn to a D. And now these kids are actually earning their passing grades, and there's no more kind of rescuing them from that failing grade. So most of those Fs are, when we looked at them, are students that are actually either chronically truant or they are not turning in any work at all. They're just not doing anything. Now, there are some exceptions, and we do have some students that are struggling, particularly some of our students that have kind of some of our lower reading skills, and we are working with those individual students in having IEPs. Because
Dr. Patton?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
go.
So I'm curious what the total N is in terms of the number of students.
So at the high school,
this
there
data.
are, there's about 130 students total. So when that's not 68 students getting an F, that's so that
68 actual Fs.
Yeah, so that's most of those. That's 19 students that earned 4 Fs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the number of students, it's the number of actual
No, in
Fs.
fact, there's very few students that earned 1 F. Most of those are multiple Fs. And I can break that down for you guys to send it. Yeah, I can send that to you in a written report so that you can see that. Yeah. Yeah, we did go to that analysis. We also went to the analysis by the grade level too, and it's primarily freshmen that also failed their classes in the middle school. So again, we're working with how to increase their rigor, their stay-to-itiveness, motivation when they've disconnected with school. Yeah, good question. Okay. And then the next thing, the next kind of, obviously you'll see that we don't have semester 2 because we haven't finished it yet. And then the next thing is percent all students of incidents. These are incidents in Power School for suspensions. And then for special ed, you can see it's way more than almost 3 times as many as our general ed in comparison. So it's still an issue with our students with disabilities with suspensions and incident reports. But anecdotally, I've been talking to Brianna Kleinschmidt and the rest of the administrative staff, and one of the things that they have really noticed, and Robert Wall is going to try and see if he can capture some data. And when we talk about PBIS, you're going to see that we would have this data once we're using PBIS systems. But what they're anecdotally noticing is they're not getting as many office discipline referrals from their kids with disabilities. So they used to get just tons and tons of referrals, requests for the administrators to come to the special ed classrooms because they'd have these groups of kids that would be together all day long who often were frustrated with their academics anyway, and so they would just ping off of each other. And now that we're finding that the students are in general ed classes, they're actually, even if they're not engaged in the academics, they're behaving themselves and they're sitting and letting the other students learn. So to me, that's the first step because then they're at least absorbing something educationally, and eventually I know that they'll pick up a piece of paper and try some work, and we just need to get them to the next step. And for the most part, our students are doing that. Most of our students are passing their classes. So, okay. So there's some positive. As I said, students are more engaged. There's less office discipline referrals. And then students are building skills. And that's the thing that they're finding is that the high school students are learning skills to be able to ask, to be able to take their tests. They're figuring out how to do study guides. They're figuring out how to keep track of their homework and things like that. So it's no longer a lot of hand-holding. And that's what we want for our kids when they move on to college and careers, is for them to learn those skills because they have to learn them eventually. And then the other positive thing is, for the most part, our gen ed and special ed teachers are finding ways to collaborate. They haven't been using the extra duty time, but they have been very much using the LCAP days and their prep times to be able to get in. The last piece I will say is that the type of special ed teacher that's able to do this is it's a change for them. It's very different than what they've done in the past. So we are requiring a lot from our SPED teachers, and we're expecting them to get out of their classrooms and get into those general ed rooms and help out. And then finally, this is the concern. So when the SPED staff met and they talked about specific skills, they looked at it from each grade level. So the freshman class, again, multiple students not completing any work, the will versus the skill. And then a lot of like history of failure, and how do you break that cycle of, I've always failed in school. So we need to go back to, again, 6th grade because and 7th grade, to make sure that our kids are not creating this kind of pattern of failing. Sophomore biology world civ, there's a lot of vocabulary, there's a lot of math in some of those classes that our students struggle with, and looking at additional curriculum adaptations for that. The junior class, they really actually did pretty well. We had very few kids that struggled in the junior class, might be because they're a little bit older and they've learned some skills. And then the senior class, there was a concern about just limited options for math. Personal finance was the only real option for them because they weren't going on to some of the higher level math and what we could do for students that still needed to work on their math so they don't forget it, especially if they're going to go on to junior college. And then we had to throw in just the typical senior distractions, just like all kids, our kids with disabilities are distracted and ready with senioritis. So next steps, we are, one of the things that we did notice is this year we've had each of the case managers trying to monitor and manage all of the accommodations around testing for their own kids on their caseload. The recommendation is to have a testing room and then just have each of the teachers pick one period that they basically house that room, and they don't have to worry about scheduling it. Catherine Cole has done a really great job of creating test security protocols, so that will be, that's in place now, and that will really help to have one room for students to go to. It'll also allow our kids with 504s to go in there and take those tests too, not just our kids with IEPs. We definitely need to continue to have collaboration between our SPED and Gen Ed staff, and those 5 days, like I said, have been very beneficial this year. If those are not in the LCAP next year, we just have to figure out another way for those staff to collaborate because that's critical. In our PIR plan, and also from talking to both teachers and administrators at the high school, we just need to continue to do training around universal design for learning, how to reach the needs of kids with different learning styles, whether they be kids with disabilities or kids that are currently lacking motivation. Continue to monitor our push-in support, make sure that we're hiring staff that have a vision for push-in support and the skills to do push-in support rather than staff that are used to doing pull-out, and I'm going to sit individually in my classroom with students. And then we'll continue to analyze our data because we want to make sure above all that our students are continuing to grow and passing their classes. And overall, I have not heard anybody come forward to say to disband the curriculum support model. In fact, the opposite. It's let's keep moving forward, and we'll be looking at, again, the model at the middle school and how the middle school can then support moving into this model at the high school. Well, I think that's it. All right. Okay. All right. So I think, and we're going to switch. So let me grab a drink. Diane, did you need to take public comment on this if there was any, or before I go into my next
I
one?
was going to get clarification on that. This is not a voting issue. Do I need to take public
I don't
comment?
know.
Yes, I can. Okay, cool. Could we split them apart, or do we have to wait for her to do both? No. Okay. So is there anybody that would like to make public comment on this report so far, the positive behavior of the special ed at the high school? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Carolyn, with your next report.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so this next one is on our PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. So this is, I believe now we're in year 3 of implementation of PBIS in the district. And we started with Robert Semple and Benicia Middle School, starting out with training through the County Office of Ed. And we have recently gone to more of in fact, a complete in-house training model for PBIS using our own in-house behaviorist. So I want to kind of go through a little bit tonight about why Benicia Unified is moving towards PBIS, look at understanding what is PBIS, how it works. We'll review a little bit of our implementation fidelity data that we have so far, talk about some of the evidence of how it's been effective here in Benicia, and then look at next steps. So again, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. What is PBIS? So PBIS is not a canned program. It is not any type of you're going to do this and this is going to happen. It is actually a framework for helping schools organize and then look at evidence-based practices to support the behavioral and social expectation for kids. So the strength of PBIS is that it's really involves the staff looking at their own school site, and it can and should look very different at different schools because you make it your own schools. So the core practices, though, should be the same. So it's always based on data, and that would be behavioral data, and it should involve systems of teaching and learning supports, and then it should involve practices of, again, the students knowing what the behavioral expectations are, understanding them, and then follow through on that. So, so those are kind of the just the basic overview. So we are at level 1 for most of our schools. Robert Semple has moved into a little bit of level 2, and we already have level 3 in that we have special ed and we have counseling and support services. But what we find is that many schools will have level 2 and level 3 services, but if you don't have a good, strong foundation of your level 1 universal systems, even your kids that need level 2 and level 3 support, they don't have a good foundation to go back into. So think about the more that you can get your whole school-wide staff and students understanding, hey, this is how we operate here. This is what goes on in every classroom. This is what goes on at recess. Then your kids that either have disabilities or they're new to the school or there's dysfunction in their home, you're placing them in a stable environment. So then you can talk to them about the rules, and it's so much easier to help that 1 or 2 students to follow the rules when you have 80% of your kids following the rules. But if you have, say, only 20 or 30% of your kids and the rest of them, let's say it's out on recess, and you have them not following the rules, and they're supposed to be playing a game, and there's not supposed to be any hands-on in tag, and your yard duty is constantly reminding 30% of your kids you can't be doing hands-on tag, then that's where it's more difficult to address that 1 or 2 students or even 10 students that are struggling to follow the rules. So part of what we need to do is we need to make sure that our tier 1 is implemented with fidelity, because it's very easy to say, let's move up to tier 2. But if you do that, then you're going to end up forgetting your tier 1. So you always have to go back and look at your data and make sure you're implementing tier 1 with fidelity. Okay, so the core features of PBIS is that there's 3 to 5 positively stated behavior definitions. And, so we hear about, be safe, be respectful, be kind, be responsible. But that's not enough. You have to then define, what does be safe look like, or what does be responsible look like? What does that look like in the cafeteria? What does that look like when you walk into the office? Many schools take this so far as, what does it look like for parents to be respectful in the office? So you can expand this, if you will, to a lot of different venues, and you'll find that the kids will say, Mom, it's, we're being respectful. We're not walking on the grass. There's some schools that's how they define, we're staying on the sidewalk. So again, it's each school is going to define what does that look like. Benicia High School chose Rise, so they have their rules around the words Rise. So, but the important thing is that the students know what it looks like in each setting, and that you're teaching the behavior in that setting, preferably with the staff that are reinforcing it. So if it's in the cafeteria staff know the expectations and they're helping to teach it. If it's the yard duty are teaching it. So, and then you're recognizing it. So this is part of the power of PBIS, if you do it correctly, is that you're recognizing that behavior, and you're giving acknowledgement, and whether it's the pause praise or whatever dragon dollars you're giving out. Some of what we struggle with and we have to continue to support is students that are trying to get positive attention will run around and pick up a little pile of trash, and then they'll run up to the yard duty and they'll want their little dragon dollars. Well, that's not what PBIS is about. Certainly you can give a dragon dollar for someone who helps, but what you want to do is make sure that you're actually acknowledging the rules and reinforcing, and not just acknowledging a child that's looking for adult attention. And then responding consistently to problem behaviors. So this is where a lot of the schools struggle at first, and when they get this one down, it really, really helps. And that's what are teacher-managed behaviors versus office-managed behaviors. And you'll see when we look at some of the testimonials from Robert Semple. Robert Semple nailed this one. And it took them a while, but they actually, the teachers, everybody's on the same page on what's managed in the classroom by teachers and colleague teachers, and what's sent up to the office, and what does Ms. Moore work on. And then finally, the biggest key is you use data to make your decisions, because when you use that data, you'll find that, hey, during second grade recess, we're getting kids in the bathroom that are playing around in the bathroom. So it's second graders, or whatever the data is. And that way you can do reteaching, because it's all about reteaching the behavioral expectations. And unless you're using the data, you're not really sure. Is it a time of day? Is it the group of students? Is it a particular behavior we need to reteach? And that's what the data shows you. So
Dr.
these are
you may get into this.
Yeah.
I may be jumping the gun, but I'm
No,
curious
go.
how who collects the data,
Good,
and
good
how
question.
it's how it's organized and put together, because it sounds like it's probably I would imagine a lot of information coming from different places.
Yes. So, okay. So that's a really great question, and it's not in my presentation, so I'm going to stop right now and answer that question. So there is, when you get your PBIS team together, they develop what's called office discipline referral forms, and there's minors and majors. So minors can be those teacher and yard duty handled behaviors. Majors may be office disciplinary referral behaviors, but all of that data, the teachers are forms, and some of the schools have gone to electronic forms. They're filled out, and then our office staff input that data in what's called our school-wide information system. So it's a pretty quick and easy. The kids' names are already in that system because it talks to PowerSchool. So you're really just clicking the time of the day, what the behavior was, what the perceived function of the behavior, if you will, and then what was the outcome of that. Yeah, so
Principal and teachers, or
another good question. So the PBIS team has a team lead, and in most cases that's a teacher. At Robert Semple, it happens to be our school psychologist. They help organize the meetings. The administrator is always part of the team, but is not the lead. There's a data analysis person that actually their job is to pull reports prior to the PBIS monthly meetings. And then you have you usually have a parent representative, usually have somebody that's either your yard duty or a noon supervisor at the secondary level. And it's really, you want a broad amount of people on your team. So at the elementary, you want people from lower grade levels and upper grade levels. The success of the team is really dependent on having a broad voice on that team. So there usually are about 8 people on the team. So the nice thing about the Swiss program is it is pretty user-friendly. The data does drill down data. So you can look at, for example, these are just some examples, and you can see that the months of the year, and then let's say you go and, oh my gosh, what's going on in December? Let's take a look at why did we get so many referrals, and then you could click on that month and you can see, were those referrals more for classroom disruption? Were they coming out more from the playground? Were they before school, after school? So you can look at your data from a lot of different aspects, and then you can drill down also on a particular child. And of course that information is confidential, but the data team can look at that. So you can keep, if you're doing behavioral interventions for a student, that data is available in Swiss. So that really helps with some of our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions for students also. So each of our school sites, with the exception of Liberty, has access to our school-wide information system and can input the data. Robert Semple is at the place where they have enough data they can actually use it and analyze it and look for changes. It takes about a year's worth of data to get the teachers really actually knowing what to do and getting consistent about using the referrals. So the first year is kind of a learning curve for everybody, and then after that the data becomes more usable. And then as you share it at, they share it at staff meetings, then the staff actually kind of can see how it's useful, and then that makes the data, it kind of is a positive cycle because they see how the data is helping them, and then they're more likely to turn in the correct data and they can tweak it, and then then that helps them to then do more reteaching, which then makes more positive behavior. Okay, so why? Because obviously this is, as I've been talking about, the data is important. It has to be user-friendly. It has to be timely. Otherwise, we spend so much time trying to pull data out of PowerSchool that it's not effective. And so this makes it, when we can pull data on a moment's notice from any school. So the next piece is the important part is to make sure that we're doing stuff with fidelity. So part of Jen Baker, our behaviorist, and my job is to look at, because we are doing this internally now, are we doing things with fidelity? And so for tier 1 fidelity, we look at going in and do 70% of the students know the school-wide rules. Can they articulate them? Do they know what they mean? Do they kind of have a sense of what they look like in various environments? And then have they been acknowledged for following those rules? And then the staff, the same thing, that the staff know what the expectations are and that they've they acknowledge that they've actively taught the expectations. And then, we've gotten to the place where we have teams at every school and so forth. So we are now at the place where we're looking at fidelity of implementation. So these are the things that we know make PBIS sustainable. And if we keep these going, we know that we'll be effective. So the first and foremost is you have to have site-level administrative support. The principal has to be on board with PBIS. Then you have to have staff buy-in. If you don't have to have 100% of your staff. In fact, we don't even recommend it. You can have naysayers and you just keep moving forward and you implement as much as you can with fidelity, and you hope those staff come along, but that doesn't stop you from implementing. And then beyond that, then it's doing the data and sharing that data at staff meetings and continuing to do training and stakeholder engagement. And the last piece kind of goes to what you said, Trustee Monet, is who's on your PBIS team. The broader your PBIS team, the more sustainable your PBIS efforts will be. So, so this is just a snapshot of just one school, and this is Matthew Turner. It's not that I just wanted you to see how it kind of looks. So the first thing that we look at is, do they have a PBIS team? And then have they done the implementation of, they've developed their rules, they've got their signage up and things like that. And then we go in and do this fidelity. And so basically Jen and I just walk around the campus and we ask kids, what are the rules at Matthew Turner? And what we want is 70% of the kids will know what the rules are, and 70% of the teachers will know what they are. And as you can see, we didn't expect them to do that back in October because they hadn't even taught them that yet. And this shows you that at Matthew Turner, they went from, under 40% of their kids knew the school-wide rules, probably only 40% of the staff, they were just deciding on them then, and now they're at 80%. So this is what the fidelity would look like on an individual school over time. So this is a summary of our Tier 1 Fidelity Index for the district. So Semple is at 77%, which is really good for Semple because they do have new students that move in on a regular basis. And so sometimes you just might randomly pull a student that hasn't learned the rules yet, but 77%, we want them at 70 or above. That's considered at fidelity. And then we are also looking at their Tier 2 fidelity, which because they've started implementing some of their Tier 2. And so we would want them to be at 70% fidelity by next year, and they're well on their way to get there. Henderson has just started implementing this year, so they're well on their way to 70%. I'm going to skip Farmer for a minute. Turner is 77. And then Benicia High just did their soft launch. So they just actually did their, and I shared that with some people, and I think it's on their website, their video that was put together by their graphic arts program. Farmer is struggling right now, and I think that it's someplace that we really need to put some efforts. Right now, that when we do the tiered fidelity index, the students do not readily know the school-wide rules. And so we're going to continue to work with that PBIS team and look at what we can do to help support that school. And then Benicia Middle School, we just had a really positive meeting with them yesterday. And so we're looking at some ways to help support Benicia Middle School. I think that was when I talked about jumping ahead to Tier 2 before you really get a good foundation of Tier 1. I think that's one of the mistakes that happened at Benicia Middle School. So we want to make sure that we're really going back and getting that solid foundation at the middle school. And one of the things that was an aha for them is the importance of sharing that data at their monthly staff meetings. So Mr. Scott is now committed to making sure that the PBIS data is shared at every monthly staff meeting, which will change this 50% very quickly. So we will do another tiered fidelity index at each of the schools that have not reached the 70%. We will do that sometime probably right after the spring break. We'll give them a couple weeks, because anytime after a break, you should be reteaching the rules and reteaching the expectations. So that'll be the optimal time the students will have been retaught those rules. So, okay, so, and then because we don't have the ability to put in a lot of strong data yet, and it would be really tiny here, I wanted to just put in some testimonials, because I think Robert Semple is a primary example of what PBIS can do to changing the culture of a school, and certainly under Ms. Moore's leadership, it has. And I was just talking to staff over the last few weeks about PBIS, and overall, basically, they just feel like it's changed the culture of the school. And I do remember myself when I first got here and walking into the office at Robert Semple, and there would just be kids all over the office. And I'm really proud of Miss Zimmer, because she was brave enough to say this. In the old days, there were many more African-American boys in the office. Now it's rare to see African-American boys in the office. I mean, she really acknowledged the disproportionate referrals and that's what PBIS does. It really does change it, particularly it changes it for our kids of color, because those students that are more likely to get referrals, they actually learn and get the positive attention that they need and get the roles. And everybody's on an equal playing field with PBIS. So, and then Mr. Farrell was talking about check in, check out. He helps with the kids with inclusion. And he's like, you know, it's really giving our kids a chance to get positive adult attention rather than always having the negative attention. Yeah.
So it sounds like what I got in terms of sort of intervention around, other than sort of data collection and sort of teaching the rules, right? Is that they're getting positive reinforcement for right. Are there other interventions that are built into the system around behavioral modification and work?
Yes. Yeah. So what happens with PBIS with Tier 1 is the reteaching, but you can also do reteaching in small groups. So let's say your data shows that a particular group of kids or a particular area needs to be retaught. You can pull them into small groups. But then with the Tier 2 interventions, there's a lot of support, such as counseling support. There's what's called check-in, check-out, which is looking at a specific student's targeted behaviors and giving them positive attention for meeting those targeted behaviors. And part of the positiveness is they get to have one-on-one time with a preferred adult to do that check-in, check-out. So that's built into the PBIS, especially when you get into Tier 2. But yeah, there's that's the the nice thing about the data is shows you where to do the interventions. You're not just kind of doing sorry for I can't think of another word, but shotgun. I know that's not a good word, but you're not just like randomly doing interventions with kids or just guessing on what interventions to do. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. To some degree. I sort of feel vague on and maybe I'm sure I'll learn more. But yeah, I guess I imagine, and I'm not an educator, right? But I'm imagining if there's like specific behavioral issues. Obviously, teaching the expectations is really important and giving reinforcement around whether people follow them or not. But I'm just curious about what we're doing when that's consistently or that's not being met, or where there's a problematic behavior.
Right.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, because then you're gonna, let's say your data shows that you retaught that and you're still not seeing, your data's still not changing. Then you may have to look at, do we need additional supervision? Do we need to look at changing the traffic flow of students? It really is specific to what is the behavior and where is that behavior at. If it's a particular classroom teacher, then does that classroom teacher need additional support, or is it the particular mix of kids that happens to be in that classroom? And then you're going, oh, maybe we need to look at a different mix, even if it's not for this year, it's for next year. We don't want to have these two kids together in the classroom. So, so some of it is stuff that we do in education anyway. It just gives us that framework to do it within. So, and then of course, as I keep alluding to, Jen Baker, as our behaviorist, just uses this data all the time when she consults with staff and teachers, because if it's more than 2 or 3 kids in a class that are engaged in the same behavior, then you don't want to do an individual targeted intervention. You want to do a small group intervention. And so that's the other piece, is you're making decisions. Is this an individual child, or is it a group of children that we want to work with? And that may be counseling. It may be social skills that you're pulling out and doing those things. It may be looking at having different kids on different parts of the playground, or restricting parts of the playground for certain groups of kids for a short period of time while they're learning a specific rule for that part of the playground. So there's a lot of pieces to it. So, yeah. So we will continue our internal training and coaching. And again, we're hoping to see in the LCAP that we will have right now the cost to PBIS, other than we pay a very small amount for our Swiss data entry, is the cost of pulling out our teachers with subs. Jen is already in-house. We do send Jen once in a while to an updated training out in Placer, but that's free other than the mileage, so it's a pretty good deal for us. We will focus next year and the rest of this year on BMS and Mary Farmer for Tier 1, and we'll continue implementation of Tier 1 at BHS. I think it's going really strongly, and they will continue with Tier 1 next year with a formal launch as they continue to tweak their office discipline referral data. And then we'll implement Tier 2 at Matthew Turner and Joe Henderson, and we'll continue, obviously, Robert Semple will continue with their Tier 2 interventions, excuse me. So, and I went the wrong way, and I think that's it for this one. All right.
All right, thank you. Okay. Are there any comments from the audience? All right, no, if you would come up one at a time to the podium, announce who you are, and then.
Carolyn Fields, Benicia Middle School. Trustee Monet, you asked about the data, and one of the things, and Dr. Patton alluded to it, but I wanted to just clarify, is at the middle school, a lot of teachers do notations within PowerSchool. Log entries is what they're called. And so if you handle the discipline, like you assign the detention or you make a phone call home or whatever, we were logging it in there. And PowerSchool does not talk to Swiss. They don't. So in terms of the data at the middle school, in our last department meeting, it was clarified that we should kind of let go of that practice of logging everything in PowerSchool and instead be writing the referrals, the documentary referrals for what we would have normally just logged into PowerSchool, so that they can get more accurate data at the middle school. So just so you know. Okay.
So the systems don't talk together. Is that what I'm understanding? And is that correct, Dr. Beeson? Okay. Thank you. Please come forward and introduce yourself.
I'm Melissa Phillips. My question was, is the data that you're getting from the teacher, specifically to when it's crazy on the playground or the lunchroom, and the person is correcting kids, like you said, 30 times for the same thing, how are they actually giving you accurate data to the problem area? Because they don't have that machine, I'm guessing, with them, or the papers, or they're too busy watching the kids. I'm just trying to figure out how you're getting actually good data so that you can actually have a solution or an idea of what the problem is to help implement a solution. So you may already have this. I just was curious about how those really crazy times are handled from a documentation.
Thank you for your question. Okay, any other comments from the board? One more. Oh, I'm sorry. I only saw one hand.
My name is Ann Bruner, and I'm a parent at Mary Farmer. And my question, the first one, I don't know if you can respond, but I was curious how you get a sample. You have 22% at Mary Farmer, and I was thrilled because I loved this year that all the teachers were getting on the same page with the rules and everybody in the school. And if you walk around, all the kids, be safe, be kind, be responsible. So I'm just curious how you get that number, which kids you're asking. Are they the shy kids? Are they the new kids? I mean, if you're walking around on the playground, or how that comes about. And then also, when you're seeing an issue coming up on the playground or wherever, how do you give support to the school or the faculty in order to, like you said, do you need more supervision on the playground? How do you do that, and how do you provide that? Just kind of curious there.
Thank you for your question. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, from the board? Are we good? All right, Dr. Patton, thank you very much for your presentations. They were chock full of information. I appreciate that. Okay, I don't see anything else on the agenda. That's it. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.